that the man that she loved took her life, took everything from her children, her grandchild, her mother, her sister, her brothers. Everything. He took everything from her when all she wanted to do was make him better, make him a better person. Hey y'all, welcome back to Ketolicious Nessa. So today is gonna be kind of like a different video. I know if you watched my last video on Sunday, I was to have a guest here today. My good friend Keisha was supposed to come on today and tell her story of domestic violence and the situation that she went through a few years ago. Unfortunately, she was unable to make it today, but she definitely still wants to tell her story, but today just was not the day. And I had everything already set up, so I figured I had to come and still talk to you guys. So I was just thinking to myself what to talk about as far as domestic violence. I did tell you guys that I did want to kind of go over a little bit of my experience with domestic violence for those that are new here. So I'm gonna go over a little bit of that, but we're also gonna talk about where I am now, 5 years later, and about forgiveness. It was a sermon that I listened to this morning, which was spot on, because God is always an on-time God, and it was just so crazy that sermon came up this morning. So I want to kind of touch bases on that as well, and just where I am with my forgiveness to the people that have caused trauma in my life with domestic violence. So get y'all a glass of wine, sit down, get ready to have a girl talk chat with me. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this out. Again, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and this is a very tough topic, but a necessary topic, because so many women and men are in these situations that they don't know how to get out of. I will have the domestic violence hotline number for Cleveland here where I am, and also for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. I always have it down in my description, but I will have it periodically popping up on the screen as well. So we're going to get started into this topic. It may be a little bit all over the place because it was not planned, but you know, for me to do this today, but it was something I wanted to do this month anyway. And hopefully Keisha can, whenever she is ready, I tell her whenever she's ready, we will put this camera up and she can tell her story. And she's very eager to share her story with you guys. And I think it will bless a lot of women and show people a different face, because people, you know, I've told my story of what I've been through, and when I tell people that, they tell me, you don't look like what you've been through. But what is the face for domestic violence? There is no face for it. There is no shape for it. There is no race for it. Like, it can happen to anybody. There is no gender for it. There are men that are in domestic violence situations, so it can happen to anyone. I was talking to my cousin last night, and we were speaking about a young lady that she knows that's in a very toxic situation that definitely seems like it's either leading or has a DV piece in it, most certainly, but she just has not admitted it. But we talked about how a lot of times teenagers. Like, that's why I want this shared out. Share it out, post it on your social media. Send it to somebody that you think may be in that situation. Just text it to them. Text them this video, because some people just don't know how to get help. They don't know the signs that they're in a toxic situation. And I found myself in that situation in my 40s. I had never been in a DV situation ever that I can think of. No man has ever put his hands on me violently that I have dealt with. So I know I saw signs, but I ignored those red flags. So, we're going to get into that. But a lot of teenagers are in high school. You see so many times now, especially here in Cleveland. We have a Cleveland Remembrance page that we see a lot of DV situations on there. And a lot of times these girls are young, 17, 18, 19, straight out of high school. It doesn't have an age. It doesn't have an age. Anybody could be in this situation. And there is help. There is help out there to get you out of these situations. But you have to do it the right way. You have to have a plan and not let the person that is abusing you and hurting you and putting you in these situations, they must not know this plan. You have to get help, and those hotlines are there to tell you the correct way to do it. Not putting family members in the midst of it and in the middle of it. You can always tell family, tell your friends what's going on, but when you bring them and involve them, it has to be in a strategic way. And the hotline can let you know that, because many family members are put in these situations and people get hurt. Innocent people get killed, and that's something that you never want to do. So you have to do it the right way, but there is a way. There is help. You do not have to stay in toxic situations. You do not have to stay in an abusive situation, because there is a way out, even when you feel like it's no way out. So just to touch back bases on just real quick. So let me take a drink real quick. It's really good. But so the service I watched earlier was saying it's 3 phases of forgiveness: exoneration, forbearance, and release. So I'm going to talk about which one I'm at. Exoneration had like 3 pieces to it. It's like if you have a child or someone that's not really at an age to know what they're doing, to forgive them for what they did. For somebody that caused some harm to you, but it was truly an accident. That's part of exoneration. And or a family member or a friend that is close to you, and it's no will intent, or it was truly an accident of something they did. So that's kind of like the exoneration piece. The forbearance piece, let me kind of remember. That is if somebody tells you that they're sorry and truly shows you that they're sorry. That's the key point right there. Is somebody truly showing you that they are sorry. Sorry if I don't know what it's looking like, but the sun is going down. It's so beautiful. It's perfect timing for this right now. But somebody showing you that they are sorry and you truly forgiving them for what they have done. And then release is when that person hasn't told you they're sorry, or you have no connection to that person, but you must release it. Because when you hold a grudge or you don't forgive, it puts bad energy on yourself. And when me and Keisha was talking earlier, she said she was just talking to somebody about this the other day, and she told them the forgiveness isn't for that person, it's for you. And that is so true, because when you hold all of that inside, it eats at you. It eats at you. It makes you bitter. It makes you mean. It makes you um, hateful towards people. Sometimes you don't even realize that you're doing it, but you do, you know. So forgiveness is very important, and it's very hard sometimes, especially when you go through these traumatic situations like I have, you know. And when I saw that message this morning, it just made me think about forgiveness. It made me think about the message that the statement that I gave my best friend's her ex-husband. I'm gonna call him her ex-husband. But the statement I stood up in court and read to him, and I thought about that the other day, and I actually may post that on Instagram, on my social media, just so people can remember. It's been 5 years, so where am I 5 years later? But I thought about that when I listened to that sermon earlier about forgiveness, and I remember telling him in my statement that I would have to pray about forgiveness. This day, you will be sentenced to confinement physically and mentally. You will remember May 1st vividly, just as it haunts our spirit. The woman you stood before God and promised to love and cherish will forever be etched in your mind. I will pray about forgiveness, but I hold promise in my heart that in the end, you will attend God's court. But he would have to answer to God, you know, and he's going to handle him. I couldn't do anything. Only thing I could do was give my statement. That's all I could do. And I felt vulnerable and weak in that moment, because what I wanted to do to him, I couldn't do, and I knew it wouldn't be the godly way. But you can only imagine what I wanted to do in those moments, what her family wanted to do. So just to kick back a little bit, go back a little bit, just to give people a recap of my story. I will also link my full story time down in the description of what happened. But I'm going to just go over it a little briefly, because I don't want to go too far and take myself into a different place. But January 16th of 2017, me and my boyfriend of like 2.5 years, 3 years, got into an argument. And we were actually going out to a comedy show that night. We were going to be meeting my best friend and her husband. We were going to a comedy show. I can't remember who we were going to see, but we got into an argument earlier that day, and I started the argument because it was about something financial, and he was a compulsive cheater. Just to be exact, he was a very compulsive cheater. And we were going to this to this comedy show. So I told him, you know, I got the tickets, you know, we had just paid rent, everything was paid up, you know, he did help out financially. But when I told him, you know, I got the tickets, but I don't have any money, so you're going to have to do dinner and our drinks, you know, this and that. So he made a comment that he didn't have any money, and I flipped my wig. I'm not even gonna lie, y'all. Like, I really went off on him. And actually, one of my cousins was on the phone with me, and she was like, whoo, you know, but I went off. I'm not even gonna lie, you know, I went in. And that was one of the things that was toxic between us, because I have a mouthpiece, and, you know, when I can't control some things, or when I'm just mad, when I get to that point, like, my mouth it could be very volatile. And that plus his anger and what's the proper word besides anger, volatile ways, that was just a trigger for disaster. He never, I knew he had a violent past, and I contributed more to his childhood and things that he went through, that I knew about, which I would never share on here because that's his, his personal business. And I've always been one of them people when I'm with somebody, I kind of take on like that social work kind of aspect of the relationship, just trying to care and fix people, the fixer upper, And, I knew the violent ways that he had, and when I met him, like, when I would go around his family, like, they was like in shock at the person he was trying to become because he was trying to change to fit in with me and the way I lived, but it wasn't what his norm was. When he would drink certain alcohols, y'all, he would flip his wig, like, for real. Like, it would be crazy. And it was crazy. Y'all know I drink Tanqueray gin. And usually people can't drink Tanqueray gin. That's how they act. But he could drink that with me and it would be fine. It would be Remy. Remy, oh Lord, if you get that man some Remy, all hell is gonna break loose. But I never saw that till maybe like a year and a half in or something like that. But like his family, like they was like, where did you come from? Like, you like an angel, like you really fixed him, like, cause he just was becoming a different person. Like, it wasn't always bad. We had good times too. He wasn't, I'm not just gonna, depict him as a monster because he wasn't, but he had some bad, very bad characteristics, and I noticed them. I saw those red flags. But because he tried to change them for me, and because he wanted to fit into my life like I wanted to fit into his life, it was both of us. I overlooked those things. And because he wasn't causing bodily harm to me, or, I hadn't seen that at that moment, I ignored those things. But they were there. We actually got into it. I done pushed him. He done pushed me. He pushed me once in the bathroom and I fell on something and like scraped my back up. But those little things, like, I really didn't look at it like I was being abused, and he never punched me or never smacked me or none of that. So again, I'm in my late 40s, early 40s, and I had never been through a domestic violence situation. So I didn't look at those little small things as something that could potentially blow up into something very big, and that's exactly what happened. So, but anyway, we were going to the comedy show, and I blew up on him. He got mad. I told him pretty much, whatever hoe you went and gave your money to, you need to go get that money and do what you got to do. That's pretty much what I said, just in light terms. So that, again, I know where my faults are, and I know my mouth and can be very toxic, and that's something I work on all the time. So and I've actually been in counseling. I talked to counseling about it, and it comes from childhood trauma and things. When you can't have a voice, you yell, you scream. So I am a work in progress, and you just have to be aware of your faults in situations like this as well. So, but anyway, he ended up leaving, and he took his car, he left, and started drinking. I didn't know he was drinking, but he was gone. Probably was drinking Remy, whatever he was drinking. He was 2 shades to the left when it was time for us to get ready to go to this comedy show. And he was outside. Something happened to his car. He came back, was fixing on his car, and I got a whole nother car. I'm like, look, I'm dressed, ready to go. I'm like, I'm about to go get my eyebrows done. I'll be back. So when I go outside to have this conversation with him, he wanted me to help him fix something on his car. Like he wanted me to hold something or do something. And I'm trying to go get my eyebrows done so we can go. And I'm looking at him like, we got to be to this show like in an hour. And you still out here working on this Cadillac when I got a whole car sitting right here that we can pull off on, you know, and it's Saturday. You gonna get to work on Monday, you know, let's just go. But I think it was more so he wanted to have his car fixed because he was pissed at me. He wanted to be able to bounce when we got back or whatever the case may be. So I was helping him, but I was frustrated. He could tell I was frustrated, and that's how the whole argument just in the car, we in the garage, just ensued. And as we arguing, the garage door at this point is open, but he ends up closing the garage. So at that point, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this about to get a little crazy. So still not thinking, you know, I did have a little fear, but it wasn't, you know, to that point. But we arguing back and forth, and I don't think he pushed me or anything. We were just arguing, just back and forth. And I had a wig on, y'all. He actually took my wig off and threw it. And at that point, I'm just like frustrated, and I'm just like confused at where this is about to go. Like, he's so irate. He was so pissed. And he took my phone. So I'm like standing at the back of the garage. He's knelt down at like the wheel of his car. And I told him I wanted my phone, and he just got so mad, and he just threw the phone at me. I didn't know if it was the phone. Now, the doctor said they felt like it was some metal. I still actually have the phone case upstairs. I'm going to see if I can find it, and I'll put it in here because it's still bent to this day. I still have it. But it's, you know how you have the pop socket or something on the back of your phone, but this case had like a metal piece on it, so that's bent. So my phone was next to me once all of this happened, but I don't know if he threw that at me or like a lug nut or something that was, you know, attached that he was putting on the tire. But when he threw it, immediately my eye just closed shut. Like, I felt the pressure. The pressure was so hard. Like, immediately my eye just closed shut. Like, I couldn't see. And I just grabbed, like, the force was so strong, I just grabbed my eye really quick. And he looking like, what's wrong with you? So then he get up. So at this point, I'm trying to walk out of the garage, and he like trying to pull my hand down. I'm like, get off of me, I can't see. So when he look at my eye, he like, he trying to help me to the door. So we go in the house, we go upstairs, and I go in the bathroom, and I try to open my eye. I can't open my eye, I cannot see, y'all. I'm panicking. I'm just like, what happened that quick? And he's standing in the bathroom, and he started crying. He's tried to give me some ice to put on my eye, like that's gonna fix what just happened. And he goes in the bathroom, and he's standing at the bathroom sink, and he starts crying, and he's just like, see what you made me do? Just you and your mouth. And he just going on and on and on. And next thing I know, he do his hand like this, like his fist on the sink, and the sink, no lie, y'all, cracks in half. Okay? And this is a sink that has like a whole cabinet below it and everything. And I see it crack, and that just terrified me at that point, because if you could crack a sink, what could you do to me? And he just crying. He ended up going in the hallway. He's like going up and down the steps. As he's doing that, I see my purse. I see my phone. I grab it, and we got stairs in the front. I run out, go down the front steps, go out the door, and fly around the house. It's a guy out in his yard next door, and he watching me. When I tell y'all, and I tell this in my story time, I felt like Tina Turner running for my life to my car. And as I'm running to my car, I could hear him coming down the back steps. I jump in my car, I reverse, and as I'm pulling off, he running in the street trying to stop me, and I just fly past him and I leave. And I call his sister immediately and I tell her what happened, and she just so happened to be in the area around the corner at her best friend's house, who's a nurse. And I go over there and they just looking at me. I don't even know how I look. I'm too scared to even look in the mirror. I can't look at, I'm just trying to focus, like the anxiety that was in me, like it was just so surreal. Like I can't even describe to you how I felt. It was like a fight or flight, just get out and get safe. And they like, Nessa, you gotta go to the hospital. So I end up driving myself to the hospital. They like, do you want us to take? I'm like, no, I'm just gonna go. And I drive myself. I go to a hospital. Y'all know I work for a hospital. I'm not gonna say which hospital, but I go to a hospital, which we have several here in Cleveland. And it's not the direct one I work at, but it's the hospital. And I go in there and I call my cousin. I'm in the waiting room. And then when I go on my phone or something, I tried to look and I noticed I could not see out my eye. And I call my cousin and I'm crying and she just like, I'm on my way. And I'm so scared to call my mom because my mom did not like him. And that's a key sign that, you know, sometimes us as mothers and parents, we can be overly barren, you know. And I know me, since I've been through these situations, sometimes I can be. But 9 times out of 10, your mother knows, okay? Your father knows. So you have to listen. But it was just something about him my mother did not like. And, you know, I tried to, and it wasn't that I tried to make excuses because me and my mom were getting into it about other things. So I just felt like, you know, she just wasn't liking them just because, you know. But I was terrified to call her, but I had to call my mother, you know. Through anything, my mother is always going to be there for me no matter what's going on. So my cousin said, you got to call your mother. So I had to call my mom, and my aunt was there with her. And they came to the hospital, and the injury was so bad that they had to take me to another the bigger hospital. I had went to like one of the satellite hospitals that hadn't really evolved, but they was like, this injury is a trauma injury and you have to go to the big hospital. And at that point I just cried and I just cried and I cried from just pain, because I was in excruciating pain, but also the embarrassment of being at my place of employment, for being a woman in her 40s going through this with somebody that I thought loved me that caused harm to me. And it was like the worst thing ever. So confusing, so belittling. You feel so small when you're in that kind of situation. And confused because this is somebody that you love, and you just can't fathom that person would actually hurt you like that. And although it wasn't a punch, a smack, you caused bodily harm. You threw something at me to harm me. That could have been a knife, it could have been anything. You wanted to hurt me. And no matter it, people have to understand, DV doesn't have to be physical. It could be verbally, it could be financial, it could be so many different ways that people restrict you, control you. It does not have to be a hit. It does not have to be a punch. It does not have to be with a hand. It could be an object. It could be their mouth. It could be religious, keeping you into a religious thing that you don't want to do. Anything. It can be anywhere. Anytime somebody is trying to take control over you is not right. Period. Okay? So, long story short, because I don't want to make this too long, but I went to the big hospital, and my injury was so severe. I was blind. They didn't know if I was going to see out of my eye, but I turned my phone off. Of course, he was calling. He was calling my whole family. He was calling everybody, and his sister pretty much told him, go get your shit out of that house and leave immediately. And he did. And I had to, my mom, my aunt Verona, I don't think I talked about her in my story time. But when I tell you, her and my mom, I didn't even tell any of the males in my family. I didn't tell anybody in my family but the people that was there. And none of the males I thought didn't know, but my sister had actually called my my cousin, who I actually met him through, which he had already threatened him to stay away from me. But I ended up going back in that incident. So let me go back real quick. I had put him out. We had got into it probably about some woman or something like that. And he was trying to kick my door in. Like downstairs, like boom. Like trying to really kick the door in. And when I told my cousin, he was so upset. He was really upset. And he went over there and he cussed him out. He checked him. He told him, don't you take your ass back over there. And he was terrified. Like, he didn't want to mess with me, really. But, you know, I'm like, you know, my cousin will be okay. We just got into it. But that should have been my telltale sign right there to leave his ass alone. But I didn't. So, those are the things. Those are some of the red flags. The drinking. Him trying to kick my door in. The compulsive cheating. The whole nine, you know. And I don't know if I told this in my other story, but it was a point where he had got somebody, well, we thought he had got somebody pregnant, and I was going to leave him, and we was going to church and everything. And I told him I was leaving him, and he set up counseling with one of the deacons, and we had counseling. The deacon told me, he said, I know what his issue is. And he told me he's insecure, he's this and that, which kind of floored me because he's very handsome, and I just never pictured men being insecure. That was the first time I ever thought about a man being insecure, and it became a reality to me that men can be insecure. And he said, but the problem is, why are you choosing to stay with him? You being who you are, you're a beautiful woman, you have a lot going for yourself. Why are you choosing to deal with him and his mess? And I'll never forget that, because it was true. Like, what was wrong with me? And that's what we have to think about when we put ourselves in these situations. It's because we're lacking something within ourselves. And I know what mine was. I know what it was, you know. And I've talked about it before in some of my other lives, on here on YouTube, that I was having a lot of insecurities about something that I was going through. And he came around at a time that I was very vulnerable, and he showed me what I needed at that time, and I grasped it, and that in turn almost made me lose my sight and my life. But I went through a lot. I had to have surgeries. I have had injections in my eyes. I already had sarcoidosis, which already attacked my eye. So for this to happen, it was very concerning to the doctors. My mother and my aunt Verona nursed me back to health. When I tell you, when I left the emergency room, they had to put eye drops in my eye. I think it was every hour or every 2 hours. But my aunt got up every hour, every 2 hours, whatever it was, without a clock, without an alarm clock. Her and my mom, when I tell you, nursed me back to health, because I was so, it was bad. Very bad. To this day, my eye doctor, which Dr. Wong, I love him to death. He, to this day, asks about my mom when I go. I was seeing him previously for sarcoidosis, but when this happened to me, I told my mom to call him. And he answered the phone. Like, that's how good he is. He answers his own phone. And he told them exactly what to do to me. When I tell you, him and Dr. Shaughnessy, who actually did my eye, they saved my eye. They saved it. And it's still, my vision is still distorted a little bit in my right eye. When, sometime on my videos, y'all might see it might be a little. Sometimes, like when I'm stressed, sometimes it gets little. But sometimes, it is very lazy. My night vision is getting worse. But, so my eyesight will never be the same. But I'm alive and I'm here to tell my story. And I'm just so happy to have family, to have faith, to have friends that was there through that hard time. And it was really hard for me. Really hard, because I didn't know how to let go of him. And even through that, it was still hard. It was very hard. I had to fight for me. And because he seemed so apologetic. And that brings me back to the sermon I listened to today. And I could say I could go the forbearance way, but he said he was sorry several times, but his actions didn't show it. Like, the things he was doing just didn't show it. Not to me, but you say you sorry, and I had countless medical bills, and he tried to start paying them at the beginning, but because I wasn't messing with him or whatever, he stopped paying my bills. Somebody that's sorry and causes you harm like that, you should have did whatever you had to do. And I was somebody that you claim you love. So just some of his things that he showed me that he really wasn't really sorry. Actually, not too long ago, 2 months ago, not even 2 months ago, he left me a long post on Facebook of how sorry he was, and he's a different person, and da this, da that. I never responded, and I don't think I am. I'm leaving that to God to deal with him, and I have to just release. So for him, it's release. It's release. I can't use any of the other faces of forgiveness but release. I have to release it. And I released really his a long time ago. That's why I've been able to do the things that I have been able to do and keep going. So, where I am now with that situation is I've released it. I released it into God's hands. I put him in God's hands for God to deal with him and, whatever sickness he has to help him. All you can do is pray for people like that. And even my kids, the twins, they still talk about him to this day. You know, I didn't tell them at the beginning what happened, but I finally did tell them. But you know, sometimes they do talk about him and they miss him because, you know, again, it wasn't all bad. My oldest and my middle daughter, I don't think they give a damn. You know, they can care less about him, but maybe Deja a little bit. But my oldest daughter didn't like him either. So, you know, but just, I don't know how long this video has been going. I know it's been going pretty long. But, so that was that was January 16th of 2017. And again, during this time, I was flip-flopping back and forth with him. Just a little bit. We would talk and, you know, I would try to deal with him a little bit, but it was hard. It really was coming to an end. But just so happened, May 1st, he came over, and we hadn't really been together in a while, but this night, I was feeling forgiven, and I let him come over. I had cooked dinner, and I got a phone call while I was at the stove. I remember where I was standing. My son was standing next to me, and I was cooking dinner, and my nephew called. My best friend TBaby son called me, which her and her husband is who me and my ex-boyfriend were going to the comedy show with. So this was 5 months later. And actually she was there when I was dealing with this. You know, she was by my side talking to me, you know, just being a listening ear. She never, what she would tell me about him was that I was better than him, that he would bring me down. She would tell me that he wasn't for me. That's what she would tell me. But whoever I loved and stood beside, she was gonna do the same, and I did the same for her. But anyway, I was standing there cooking dinner, and I got a call from my nephew that he asked me had I talked to his mom. And I had actually texted her earlier that day. I still got the text in my phone. Still got it in my phone. But I had texted her about something we had talked about, like a school or something. I asked her a question and she didn't answer, but I didn't think nothing of it because I knew she was working. So I figured she was just working, she was busy, she just hadn't got back to me yet. And immediately when he said that to me, I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, nobody has heard from her. She was supposed to pick her daughter up from school, and she didn't pick her up." And immediately my stomach dropped. It dropped. I told him to call the police. I hung up with him and I just bust out crying. And my son was just like, "Mom, what's wrong?" And I'm telling him, and he like, "Everything gonna be okay." I said, "No, it's not." I knew it. I knew it in my gut. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. Because of the conversations me and her had 2 days prior. We was together the day before. And I just knew it. I knew that he had killed her. And I just went in panic mode. I told him to call the police. I go immediately to her house. She had just moved down the street from me, so she was literally not even 5 minutes away from me. So my ex-boyfriend, he takes me down there. We go in the house, the police is there, we talking to the kids, and he ended up taking me outside to talk, and I'm telling him he did something to my best friend. She would never leave her kids like this unannounced. She would never do this, like, you know, and she had been telling me that something, you know, that he was moving wrong, and it was just a lot going on, and she was leaving him, you know, and he ended up actually leaving the house 2 days before this. So, you know, something is not right. As we're standing outside talking, her daughter goes, we just hear her scream, like a scream that I never forget. Like, I never forget that scream. Never. And it was just like slow motion, like everything was in slow motion. Us trying to run, the officer next to me, we both running. My ex-boyfriend, he running in the house. As he gets in the house, I hear him screaming. I hear my nephew in there, he starts screaming. The kids start screaming. Everybody is screaming, and I couldn't get there soon enough. I couldn't get to that door soon enough. And when I reached the basement, they stopped me. They wouldn't let me get to the basement. They wouldn't let me through. And I tried to get to her, and they wouldn't let me. And I'm glad they didn't, because I don't want that vision in my head. I know her children have that vision. And actually, my ex, when he left me that message, he talked about it, you know, that he still had a shirt from her funeral, and he knows that when that happened, it was God just giving us both a sign, and he's so sorry, and he think about her all the time. And so, do I think he's a little, has some regret? I do. I don't think he's just like a true monster. He's just messed up, fucked up in the head. But then again, who knows? It could be lies. I don't know. I released it though. But anyway, they didn't let me in the basement. And my best friend was down there strangled to death. Yes. Her husband strangled her to death. And that's a day, May 1st, 2017. I will never forget that day. Never forget that day. Never forget the look on her kid's face. Never forget the face of her mother, who lived on the next street, coming around the corner and her on her motorized wheelchair to get around there, because she couldn't get there fast enough. Her sister pulling up and falling out. Her trying to get in the house. I'll never forget those events. Never. Never. Never forget it. Never forget us in the house and the cops saying, let's clear the house. This is a crime scene now. Just everything. I helped my best friend move into that house. She moved into that house to get away from the area where she lived at, because it was a lot of shooting, a lot of violence, and she had just buried her son like a year or two before that, like a year and a half before this, from being shot on her porch and watching him take his last breaths. So she moved by me for peace. She moved for peace, and she was so happy in that house. Such a nice house. So happy. And moving her in that house, being in that basement, we sat in that basement, played cards. We had so many good times in that basement. And to know that her body was down there just destroys me. And to know that the man that she loved took her life, took everything from her, her children, her grandchild, her mother, her sister, her brothers, everything. He took everything from her when all she wanted to do was make him better, make him a better person. How could you know my best friend's troubled past, know the heartache she suffered through life, including the death of 2 of her children, and still take life from her? Your past was twisted and you came with nothing. And despite that, TBaby tried to show you how to be a better man. But instead, you repaid her by watching breath helplessly leave her body with no remorse as a coward would. And because of jealousy, because he was weak, a coward. Don't ever think that a man can't be jealous of you, because he can. And she used to tell me that all the time. When they first met, she told me, she said, he's jealous of me. And I'm like, huh? She like, he's jealous. When I go to work and stuff like that, he's jealous. Because he was a piece of shit. He was jealous of her. So that's a real thing. That is a real thing. But he took my best friend from me. My best friend of 20 years, he took her away from me. And I went to school with this coward. I went to school with him. He found her on social media. Me and her was in Kentucky at Kentucky Derby with my family. And when we was out, she showed me a picture of him and asked me did I know him. I said I know of him. We went to school together. We was never cool like that, you know. But he went in her inbox because he saw a picture of me and her on Facebook in our swimming suits. And she was looking cute. Too cute, as always. And he slipped in her DM. And I didn't even know they was dating until like maybe a year, not even a year, I'm sorry, like a month or so once we got back. You know, my friend, she just moved. You know, we just moved and we, you know, we hadn't really seen each other. We had talked here and there, but she had called me and told me, yeah, me and I ended up pulling up on her and he was there, you know, and it was so crazy because he tried to act like we was so cool, you know, and it was a lot of signs from him. And I mentioned some of the signs to her, some of the things I didn't like or whatever. And some of the things that I thought was just off. You know, or things that she would tell me that was happening. I'm like, that's him. You know, he did that. You know, it was just suspicious things that was going on. And it was him, you know. But he acts so nice to me. He acts so nice to her sister. We had no idea any of the other things that was going on. But after she was murdered, at the funeral and after the funeral, so many people was coming to me. Like, he did this. He wouldn't let her do this. He wouldn't let us come over there. I had no idea. He had shunned all her friends, all her family away. Like, they wasn't even going over there to see her. I had no idea. Because when I tell you, when I would come by there, he would be so nice. So nice. And the thought that I picked this coward up sometime, pulled up to her house and was there with him until she got home sometime with a killer. Like, dude, can you imagine how that feels in my gut? Like, it's sick. It's sickening. It's a sickening feeling. Even 5 years later, it's a sickening feeling. Sickening. But where do I go from here in forgiving him? I have to release it. And I don't know. I have never thought about forgiving him until today, until I watched that sermon today. I never even thought about forgiving him. I thought about it with my ex and where we was. You know, I've been released that to God. I've been put him in God's hands. And I put her ex into God's hands as well, but never just thought about the forgiveness piece, because the fury I have when I think about him just pisses me off. But I have to release that in order to heal myself. And I think I've been doing really good. I know I have been doing really good. But when I think about him and think about the scenario and the situation and the heartache and the pain that he caused us, it makes me mad all over again. But I have to release that so I can stay whole and be whole. And I read him his rights in court, and he tried to cry and say he was sorry, but he's a liar. He's a compulsive liar. The reason we ended up in court first, he said he was, he didn't do it. He was out for like 2-3 months before they had to wait on evidence. For almost 2 years, I slept with barricades. Even after he was put in jail, I slept with barricades under my door. And I still have anxiety, still have PTSD. I still have trauma effects from this. Still in counseling. And I will stay in counseling. And I'm so grateful to have counseling, have family, have friends, have y'all, have my Purple Gang. That's where Purple Gang comes from. Purple, this purple heart, purple. Every time you see me with purple, domestic violence. Domestic violence awareness. That's what it's for. And I told Keisha that these story times and us telling our story is just the beginning. It's so much work to do. It's so many things that I want to do, and I've talked about it for so long. Now it's time for me to actually do something. What? I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out to help people. And I know these story times, they do help people. And she even told me that if I could just help one person, and y'all have always heard me say that, I know this will get to somebody. It'll make somebody walk away from what they're dealing with. And I'm just so blessed, so thankful that I had the courage to stand up for myself, because I could have stayed easily. I could have stayed. That would have been the easy route. So I'm so grateful to myself. And I have to pat myself on the back that I was strong enough, courageous enough to love myself in that moment, to never go back. Never go back. And I will never go back. Never. I won't put myself in those situations. When I see those red flags, I walk away. Sometimes the red flags may not even be the red flags, and I'm probably throwing people to the side that maybe don't even need to be thrown to the side. But I have to go with my intuition. A woman's intuition, you have to use it. That's one of the best gifts God gave us. Use your intuition, because it can save your life. It can save your life. I don't want to be alone the rest of my life, but it has to be something that's worth it. It has to be something that brings me joy, brings me peace. And he talked about that in the sermon, that when you release, you bring peace. I'm all about peace in my life. I don't want anything to disrupt my peace. If it's not something peaceful, if it's draining, if it's stressful, if it's toxic, I don't want it. What I have right here is peace. And I'm so happy that I have peace in my life. I still have these traumatic situations that I've been through, that I work through daily to stay sane. I work through it with my counselor. I work through it with myself. I worked through it, and I'm going to keep working through it. But one thing for sure, two things for certain, I know that I am enough. I am enough. And if you can't see my worth, stay the hell away from me, because I don't want it. DV does not have a sign. It doesn't have a face. It doesn't have an age. I was in my early 40s. My best friend was almost 40. And her life was taken. She was taken from her children. She was taken from her family. She was one of the most bubbliest people, like the life of the party. Like, I miss her so much. Like, and I can never get that back. But I know this, YouTube, all of this is part of her. I always say this. I never saw myself doing anything like this. I could see maybe her doing something like this, but I never really thought I could do something. Maybe, I don't know, but I know she lives through me. I know I have a greater purpose, and God put me through those things for a reason, and I have to stay on my purpose. And I always say that I don't like cooking, and but I do it. But the reason I always say keto saved my life, it was something for me to concentrate on. And through that concentration of learning how to love myself again and lose weight, cooking became something part of keto that I had to do to lose my weight. So that's where the love of cooking came from. So I don't care how much I say I'm sick of cooking, I'll never give up on it, because it saved my life. It saved my life health-wise. It saved me mentally, because it gave me something to focus on besides the negative. And that's what you have to do. You have to find something that's going to lift you and make you a better person. And if the person that you're with is not bringing that value to your life, let it go. Let it go. Let my story not be your story. Let my story save your life. Let my story help you save somebody else's life. Don't let my best friend die in vain. When you hear this story and you see the hurt and the pain that it causes, it's a reason. It's a reason I'm here. It's a reason I'm on YouTube. It's a reason I'm cooking. It's a reason for everything. Keisha couldn't make it today, but she's going to tell her story. And maybe God wanted me to sit here and reflect on forgiveness. It's a reason. It's a reason for everything. It's a reason for everything. God doesn't make no mistakes. He's always here. He's always here, always on time, and he's going to make it right, no matter what. But this video is probably about 2 hours long. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to cut it in half. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I hope that it reaches somebody. Please share my story. Please let people see what could come from you saying yes to yourself. Because I could have stayed. And if I hadn't stayed, I could be dead today. But I chose me. I chose my life. I chose to be here with my children. I chose a different path. And some women choose to leave. And they don't make it because these monsters come after them and they kill them. So I know that's a scary thought. But I'd rather die trying than staying. And that's facts. and my best friend left. She was so happy. She was going to file for a divorce Sunday. I made her breakfast. We laughed. We talked. She said, I'm going to file a divorce tomorrow, Nessa. My son was there. We had a good time. We had breakfast. We sat. We talked. We went riding around. And in less than 12 hours, he killed her. Don't let that be your story if you can help it. But she left. She died trying to leave. But I just pray that this gets to somebody and helps somebody save their life, save their loved one's life. And on that note, I'm going to leave on up out of here, y'all. I hope I didn't make everybody too sad because it is a happy ending, even though it's traumatic and it's devastating. And I suffer a huge loss. I'm here to tell this story and to save other women's lives, save other men's lives, other teens' lives. And that's what I'm here for. So until next time, keep it Ketolicious. I'll see y'all in the next video. Cheers. Bye.
In conclusion, to this day, we dread it. I wanted the court to know, though the pain is deep, I won't let the devil win. This tragedy has affected my life in negative ways, but I refuse to let it defeat me. And today I can say through the heartbreak, my God is showing mercy and favor over my life. And with that blessing will flow through me, her children, and her entire family who loves her. As long as I breathe in my body, TBaby's name will never die. I will continue to tell my story of domestic violence and let people know hurt people hurt people. I pray that he gets the sentence deserving of his crime until he gets to the court of eternal life. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.